Hey everyone, this is George Shepard from Survivalist Magazine and Survivalist.com. We're getting ready to start our special webinar presentation for today, and we're going to be talking about how to create an unlimited food supply. Now, this is important for many different reasons, but before we get started, I want to make sure that you've eliminated as many distractions as you possibly can. So if you're checking email or texting or browsing the internet or anything else, you're just listening to this, make sure that you actually just put everything aside for a moment and pay attention because this could literally save your life. Now, many people have or think that they have a good food storage plan or some sort of survival food plan, but I think that you're going to learn after this presentation that what you have is probably not going to get you through the tough times, or it's incomplete in some way. So we're going to go through today, right now, and help you complete that survival food plan. So let's go ahead and get started. So what you're going to learn here in the next few minutes is going to literally change your life and potentially could save your life. You're going to learn why you need an emergency food storage plan right now. You're going to learn about the traditional food storage plans and why they don't work or why they could actually kill you. And you're also going to learn about the ultimate food storage system. So I'm going to be teaching you exactly how to perfect your plan and fill any gaps or any loopholes that you might have in your plan so that it's going to be absolutely bulletproof. So an emergency food storage plan needs to consist of these major features. Number one, it needs to be affordable because food right now is extremely expensive, and if you're going to be stockpiling a year's worth of food or more, well, that can get into the tens of thousands of dollars for a small family even. It needs to be high quality. It needs to be nutritious so that it actually has what you need to get you through and keep you with a sustained level of energy when you need it the most. And it also keeps your immunity up. So it has to be high quality, has to be nutritious, it has to be storable. So it has to be someplace where it's small enough that you can actually put into some sort of a storable situation. So you put it out of your way. So it's not, you're not living around it. You're not looking like you live in a hoarder's type of house. So you have to be able to put it away and store it. It needs to be transportable in case you need to bug out or change locations. It needs to be renewable. That means you can actually create more of it when needed. It needs to be able to multiply itself. And it needs to be divisible, means if you need to split things up, whether you use a little bit now and a little bit later, or you want to go ahead and ration things out, or use part of it for bartering, it needs to be divisible in some way, shape, or form. So that huge sack of beans that you might end up having, it might not be what you're going to need getting through this because you don't have any way of dividing that, and also it won't be multipliable as well. It has to be community minded. That means you need to be able to feed more than one person or deal with a small community when dealing with your emergency food storage system. And you need to look at this as an investment for a number of reasons. If you invest in this right now, number one, it's going to give you so much peace of mind. So you don't have to worry about what happens when the food supply chain runs dry and trucks don't run to your grocery stores anymore and they close down. You're not gonna have to worry about these. That's number one. So you're investing in yourself and in your own like sanity, really. And then number two, you're going to be investing to where when food is not, when it becomes a commodity and it's not easily found, you're going to see the prices for even a small bag of rice is going to go through the roof because if you don't have it and you're starving to death, you're going to be willing to do anything it takes to get it. Okay, so keep that in mind. Why do you need a food storage plan? Well, some of this might be kind of common knowledge for some of you, but for a lot of folks, they don't really think about these things. And number one is grid failures. Grid failures happen all the time. Blackouts happen all the time. Power outages happen all the time. And there are also fuel shortages that have happened over time where the gas prices might go so high that that affects your food, basically, when it gets to the supply chains. So if you have a grid failure, a blackout, or power outage in your area, whether it's lasting, a couple hours or a couple weeks even, you're going to see the prices for your food is going to go away because transportation basically grinds to a halt. You can't freeze food anymore because you have no more power. There's a lot of issues you're going to have to deal with. And it's going to be really, really, really important for you at this particular time to be self-reliant when it comes to your food because that's what's going to keep you alive during the tough times. Now you might think to yourself, well, I've got a 3-day or 72-hour kit. 72-hour kits are made for, well, they're made for people who want to live in that fantasy land of, well, 3 days is going to be enough. The system will come back up and the grid will come back up and my government's going to take care of me. My community is going to take care of me in 3 days. That's it. Because that's what happens a lot of times when you'll see like a hurricane or a tornado. There'll be a power outage for a few days and then usually it's back up for most people. Unless you live in a rural area and you'll know right off the bat that 3 days is not enough. Because in rural areas where it's not as high a priority because the population is lower, it takes a lot longer than 3 days to get those food supplies back up. I should say the electricity grid that's going to help you keep the food supply because everything goes empty. In a hurricane here in Florida, when you see a hurricane coming, like the store shelves empty, water is completely gone, a lot of the food is just gone too as well. So 3 days, if you're dealing with a 3-day MRE supply or some sort of a meal kit, it is just not enough. And you have to be ready for that right now to last way more than 3 days. Actually, 3 months is not even enough at this point in time. You might be also wondering or worried about some things like worldwide economic collapse. This is stuff that we've been seeing a lot in the news. There's definitely some financial instability coming. Whether you believe it or not, there's a lot of propaganda out there that some of it's very scary, and a lot of it's very true. You just need to be prepared to know what's fact and what's from fiction. But if you have a good food storage plan, then a lot of the stuff that you're going to be worried about, it's not going to be an issue because you're not going to be worried about these things. Okay, so other than just the worldwide economic collapse, you can have a local economic situation too. I mean, you could lose your job. What happens when you don't have any more income? What happens if you have no more money coming in, or your savings gets depleted completely, and you don't have anything that you can barter with that's really of value? Well, your family is going to probably starve. Number one, you're going to be forced to do things that you never thought that you were going to have to do. If you have a year's worth of food, or you have a good food storage plan that's not just 1 year, but it's a sustainable food system, which is what we're building right now, then you can weather the storm. You can sit in place and you can stay put because you're always going to have that food. Now, of course, you're going to need to have water, which is stuff we've talked about in other webinars. But right now, we're worried about the food area of your survival plan. So there's other things to be prepared for too. There's natural disasters that happen all the time. And don't think that you're immune. If you've been living in an area that hasn't had many or doesn't have a lot of natural disasters on a regular basis, these things happen, and sometimes they happen in freak accidents when people are not prepared. Just look at the tsunami in Japan. Look at Hurricane Katrina or Sandy or the tornado in Joplin, Missouri. These things can come out of nowhere. They can be wildfires. They can be floods. They can be droughts, earthquakes. Any number of things can possibly go wrong. So you need to be prepared for not just a man-made disaster, but also natural disasters. Like we talked about droughts and floods, they do happen, and they happen on a regular basis. If your entire food system that you've built, okay, is based on, say, beans and rice, and it's not stored properly, and you have a flood, it's going to all go to waste. Because if you don't store it properly, and you don't know what you're doing, or you don't have a bulletproof plan, everything that you're preparing for right now can completely be lost and goes to ash. All right. We have, of course, man-made disasters, which are things that you're not usually able to prepare for, whether it's a 9/11 type of thing, or it could be any kind of an issue that you could end up having, a building collapse, a highway collapse, even a house. If they didn't build it properly, it could collapse on you too. So again, you have to have some sort of a bulletproof plan. That again, there's those things that we talked about that are most important when it comes down to your food storage, which is you need to be able to bug out with it. You need to be able to easily transport it, and there's a lot of those other things from that checklist that we talked about, which hopefully you took notes on already. We're going to go back through some of those here in a minute, so don't worry if you did miss that. We're going to get back to those here in just a little bit. You also have to worry about foodborne illness. Now, this is a big problem that I think a lot of people are not really prepared for, and that is if we do lose any of our power or we have some supply chain issues, there's a good chance that the food that's at the store might not be good anymore, and you might want to be very careful about eating it. This happens even today when you don't hear about power outages, where either you have like food recalls or E. coli or mad cow disease or whatever is like a foodborne illness that you think that you're eating something that's healthy because it's supposed to be packaged, it's supposed to be frozen, or it's supposed to be refrigerated, and it's not. Or maybe it's been put out and maybe it's too old and there's a problem with it. There's all kinds of things that could possibly go wrong. You also have the rising cost of food. Fuel and grain, they're both commodities. And if you have the fuel go up, well, guess what? The price of food is going to go up. If you have the grain go up because of droughts, well, all the fuel is going to go up because it's all going to be sucked up from transporting food around. So there's a lot of government regulations right now that are coming out literally every single year that are tying the hands of farmers, again, making your food costs go up. And if you just take a look actually at how far your dollar went in 1998, $20, and I remember this, and if you go even further back than 1998, it was even a greater difference. $20 used to buy an entire cart full of groceries, because I remember going to the store and carrying a bunch of groceries back and forth to my house. Now you go to the store and $20 might get you a couple things. I mean, that's what inflation has done. And if you can't see this at this particular point in time, This is one of the reasons why you need to look at investing in a good food storage system and perfecting that plan now, because the price of your food is going to go up and it's going to keep going up. It's going to skyrocket in the case of a disaster, an emergency where there's a lesser supply of it. So let's talk about myths. Now, these are some myths about food storage that were being sold today from a lot of different companies. A lot of different people think that they know what they're talking about when it comes to food storage. And the first one is going to be freeze-dried food. Now, freeze-dried food it can be very expensive. Okay, it's good for a lot of different reasons. We're going to go through these right now, but for the expense of it, it costs more than, in a lot of cases, $10,000 to feed a family of 4 for just 1 year, to have enough freeze-dried food. It's also bulky because freeze-dried food usually come in those Mylar bags, and it takes up about 80 cubic feet, which is the size of a closet, to store. So if you don't have, or if you're living in an apartment or something that has a place that has a small amount of space that you can kind of hide your food, you don't want to be walking all over it, then you got to think about how much food this is going to take up. And 80 cubic feet is pretty big, and that's something you're not going to be able to bug out with. Freeze-dried food also needs pure water to rehydrate. And the reason why it needs pure water is because that water is going straight into the food, and then it's going straight into your stomach. You can't use non-potable water or water that's just out and about, because they do carry all kinds of different waterborne diseases, viruses, bacteria. So you need to have a pure water source to rehydrate freeze-dried food. Okay, that could be a blessing and a curse in some ways. The blessing is it makes it a lot lighter because there's no water in the food, so you can carry it a little easier because it's not as heavy, but it still retains that bulk. But you got to be careful and make sure you have a pure water source to rehydrate it. They're typically low in protein, which means that they don't contain meats in a lot of cases. And if you include meats in freeze-dried food, it typically will shorten the life of that freeze-dried food to about 15 years instead of 25. So it takes about 10 years off the lifespan because meat just doesn't really stick around that long very well with freeze-dried food when you freeze-dry it. Okay, and like I mentioned before, it's lightweight, but it can be difficult to transport, and after about a year, your food's going to be gone. Because if you have a freeze-dried food for a year and you've eaten it all, well, you need to find some other solution. You need to find some other solution before you run out, and those are the things we're going to be talking about today. Another solution that a lot of people take into their plan is dehydrated food. And here's the good and the bad about dehydrated. They can be very expensive. Now you can buy a dehydrator and you can start dehydrating your own food to save some money. But again, dehydrators are going to be several hundred to several $1,000s depending on the size of what you get. Plus it takes a long time to dehydrate food in some situations. They're bulky, just like the freeze-dried food. It takes just about as much storage space as a freeze-dried food. Now they can be a little heavier, actually quite a bit heavier than the freeze-dried food as well. And they have good nutritional value, which is good. They also need pure water to rehydrate if you're going to rehydrate them. Some things like jerky, you can actually, that are dehydrated, you can eat some of that just straight off out of the package. But some of the other dehydrated foods they're really lacking in the water, so you're going to still need that pure water source to rehydrate it. It's going to run out eventually, just like the freeze-dried food, and also it's difficult to transport. Now, right now we're going through the things that you need to keep in mind as we're building the plan. We're going to start building the plan here in just a little bit, but I want to get through the stuff that's the most important so you have a proper understanding of why and how we're putting this plan together. MREs. Now, this is really scary to me, and that is anyone that's been in the military knows about MREs, and they can tell you stories. MREs are for short-term use only. They're not healthy if you use them continually. And anyone that's been in the military will tell you that gum that comes along with the MRE, that's a laxative. And it's because if you eat enough MREs, you're going to get bound up so bad that you might pray for death. Okay, you need to make sure that you have plenty of laxatives. And I don't think that you're going to want to be in that situation eating MREs every single day in a survival situation either. Canned foods. Now this is a pretty good option actually if you've got the place to store it, because realize this, the canned foods, they weigh a lot. Okay, so you're not gonna be able to take them everywhere. They lack the enzymes of some fresh foods, but they're still as close as you're going to get to fresh. They're even better in a lot of cases than the freeze-dried foods, the dehydrated, and the MREs, because they have more nutritional value. Plus the water that's in the can, you can actually use that to help rehydrate your body through any kind of a disaster. So of course you need to have a pure drinking source of pure water, but you can also use some of the liquid that's in the cans as you're eating food to help rehydrate your body as well. And again, like we talked about, they're heavy and they're bulky, so in a bug out situation or a relocation situation, you're not going to be able to take those with you. So you got to keep that in mind as well. And if you have your stuff canned, it has a shorter shelf life. So if you're canning your own food, that's great. But also realize that if you're canning your own food, you're probably putting them in glass bottles, which makes them very fragile as well. Again, they're hard to transport. And in the event of, say, an earthquake or something that might rock your home, if you have these stored in your home in a pantry, there's a chance that you're going to have some broken jars. So you could slowly start through attrition to lose your canned food if you're using the mason jars. I still recommend that everyone learn how to can their own food because this is really, really super important, especially for any kind of a long-term collapse that's going to last more than 6 months, a year, or more. And there's a lot of things that can happen, like EMPs. If we had a major EMP in the United States, or anywhere in the world really at this point in time, a major EMP, like the one we had back, I think in the just at the beginning of this last century, in the early 1900s, it would completely fry the grid. I mean, literally for years, we would have no electricity in some areas because they can't build the transformers fast enough to restore power to a lot of the country. So keep that in mind. And here's another one, heirloom seeds, or some people call them survival seeds. They're good for a lot of different reasons. They're actually an excellent source of nutritional value because it's real food. So it's live food. It has the best nutritional value that you can possibly get. The downsides are that they're not an immediate food source. That means that you just can't, it's not the Jetsons where you just drop a drop of water on a seed and all of a sudden you grow yourself a tomato. It doesn't really work that way. It takes a little time. And growing food needs experience. I'm not sure if you guys have ever done or grown a garden, but sometimes garden vegetables grow well and sometimes they don't. I have a certain trouble with certain things I try to grow. I just have a really hard time doing it. And you need soil. You need to have some sort of um, a soil that has the nutritional value that can get into your plants. So you have to have some place to grow them. Now, you can grow plants in pots. You don't have to have them be, in the open ground or anything like that. So there's a lot of indoor gardening, there's hydroponics, there's aquaponics, there's a lot of stuff that you can do to grow food. But again, these are great, but they're not an immediate food source. But as far as nutritional value, survival seeds or some sort of a seed, an heirloom seed specifically, has the highest nutritional value of any kind of food storage medium. And here's the last one we're going to talk about, and that's going to be livestock. Well, actually, it's not really the last one. We got one more to talk about too, but livestock's great for a couple reasons. One is if you live in an open pasture, well, the earth will provide some of the food for the livestock, depending on what the livestock is. However, if you don't have a lot of land so that the animals can graze and get nature's food, you're going to have to feed them. That's pretty bad. That means that you have to take the time. You need the land. The maintenance for livestock, it's like having kids. And you got to make sure that you don't get attached. That's another problem too. A lot of people sometimes will get attached to that. And if it's going to be used for food, well, you got to be kind of careful in what you do. If you're going to get livestock, I'd recommend that you get livestock that is renewable. Like if you're using goats for the wool, I won't say sheep for the wool, but goats for the milk, for example, or chickens for the eggs. There's a lot of things you can do that actually are renewable with livestock. They don't take much space. Even rabbits, or things that multiply fast. Again, something that can multiply, like we talked about the multipliers. But again, they take maintenance, they need land, they're hard to transport, because transporting livestock is like, you're just not going to do it. It's really difficult to do that. Big livestock, I should say. And livestock needs to eat also. So you have to have enough food in wherever you're going to be able to not just feed yourself, but feed whatever animal you plan on eating later, or using as a renewable food source. Got to keep that in mind. Sprouts. This is an interesting one because sprouts they're kind of a mixture in a way of the heirloom seeds and also some of the freeze-dried food because they're storable and you can sprout them so they're actually live food. So it's actually a really good source of nutrition. It takes only a few days, 2 to 5 days to grow sprouts. They do require a little bit of time and tools and a little bit of, you have to kind of done this before. So I'd recommend if you do incorporate sprouts, which I'd recommend we do, my family, but you should also incorporate sprouts into your plan. If you're doing that, you need to have grown sprouts. Don't just like put them in the buckets or put them in the shelf and just wait for the things to go wrong before you try to figure out how to do this stuff. So you want to be able to use sprouts on a regular basis, or actually anything we're talking about. If you're going to try to deal or have livestock as part of your survival plan, you need to be growing and raising livestock now. If you're going to be doing heirloom seeds, you need to start growing vegetables now. If you're going to eat freeze-dried food or dehydrated food, you need to open up some of those packages and eat them right now and see if you really like it or not, or see if you can survive it. And I'd recommend everybody take 30 days and just use your 30-day food supply and test it. See if you can really survive on it. If you feel like you'd rather die than eat more of that freeze-dried food or those MREs, keep that in mind because this is going to be or could be potentially a problem that goes on for a long period of time. So sprouts are great. They increase nutrition and they can be 8 times as much carotene as the other freeze-dried dehydrated foods or even just standard foods because for some reason when you sprout a seed, it has the highest nutritional impact. So I'd recommend that you have sprouts and you use them actually every day. Um, Outside of that, it increases the enzymes for your digestion, which is really important. You have to keep yourself healthy in your digestional tract. I don't know if you know this or not, but we've talked about this in previous webinars where the 70% of your immune system is actually in your intestines. So you need to have your digestive system really be strong because your immunity needs to be as high as possible through any kind of a rough time or disaster situation. So again, sprouts as a meal, the only downside about it is you're probably not going to want to eat a bowl of sprouts every day for the rest of your life, or at least for a year. After, I would say, a few days, you're going to get pretty sick of sprouts, just in general. So you want to have something that's not going to give you what we call appetite or, well, taste fatigue in general. So you want to mix the stuff up. And so we're going to be talking about how to put that together in a plan in just a moment. So let's talk about what we just learned. So the reasons why you need a food storage plan are for power failures, for economic collapses, disasters, both man-made and natural, sickness, rising costs of food, and any kind of other situation that you might not be prepared for. And the food systems that are currently available are freeze-dried food, dehydrated food, MREs, canned food, livestock, and also seeds and sprouts. I put seeds and sprouts in the same category because they all look the same before you start to use them. So, and you can actually sprout heirloom seeds. So you can they're a little bit interchangeable in a way. So there's special seeds you want to get for sprouting like alfalfa seeds and some other ones, but there's also seeds that you're going to want to get that are going to be for your, actually for growing vegetables and they're heirloom seeds. And we'll talk more about heirloom seeds in a minute because there's some other things I want to tell you about as well. So let's quickly compare this on this chart and hopefully you can see this okay. So out of all of the different food types that we talked about, as you can see, MREs are easily transportable. That's why our military uses them. And they're, as far as being affordable, canned food is very affordable because you can get cans of food for 25 to 50 cents in some cases, like cans of corn and things. High quality food, freeze-dried food, dehydrated food, MREs, everything is pretty much high quality. Nutritious. Most of them have nutritional value, and I didn't say that I didn't put them in here like ranked the top nutritious, but they're all fairly nutritious. There's only a couple that are renewable, and that's going to be your seeds and sprouts and also your livestock. So that's something that can perpetuate longer than the standard freeze-dried food will last if you're just buying a bunch of it in bulk. So I'm not going to go through the rest of these, but I wanted you to see this chart so you can get an idea that there's only one thing outside of livestock. The thing that hit all these buttons was seeds and sprouts, and for a number of reasons, and I'm going to talk about this again here in a minute. So after researching all these options, if it's okay with you, I'd like to share with you our best food storage plan so you can incorporate this right now into your own food storage plan. So this is where it is. So I want to make sure you write this down. This is a 3-part plan for creating an unlimited food supply. So number 1, you need to have at least a 6-month supply of freeze-dried food or dehydrated food for each person. Now I say 6 months supply because in most cases 6 months is going to get you through most of the disasters that you're going to have, of course. And there's a second part to this which we're going to talk about in a moment, which we're going to teach you how to make that unlimited perpetual food storage supply. Number 2, you need to have a year's supply of sprouts per person, approximately 6-gallon bucket per person. Now this is important because you need to have that nutrition. And like we talked about before, freeze-dried food, dehydrated food, those types of things, they have great shelf life. There's no question about that. They're fairly easy to store. They are a little bit bulky, but they're not going to give you the nutritional power that sprouts will give you. There's probably by far the best nutritional supplement you can have, especially during a class when you need to keep the nutrition at the top of the level at peak performance. And you also, on number 3, you need to have a 2-year supply of heirloom seeds. And the reason why you need a 2-year supply, which we're going to talk about here in a moment, is because some seeds actually don't reproduce each year, which we're going to talk about that again, like I said, in more detail in just a second here. And number 4, I put this in as a bonus because this is something, if you have the ability to have some land and you can get some small livestock or large livestock, I'd recommend that you have some. But you want to have livestock that can pretty much take care of itself. So like rabbits, chickens, goats, those are great. Cows are fine too, but you need to have a good pasture for a cow because they're just way too big. If you don't have a pasture for a cow, even in a suburban environment, rabbits, chickens, and goats are actually not a bad food storage and renewable food storage plan because you can use them on a regular basis. Okay, so just to reiterate, 6 months supply of freeze-dried food. Okay, for each person. So that means a 6 month supply for one person is not going to last a family of four. Keep that in mind. And this is minimums. I personally think you should go for a year, but 6 months at the minimum. A year supply of sprouts per person. That's 1 6-gallon bucket per person. And 2 year supply of heirloom seeds. And if you can, some small livestock. Now here's the kicker. This is what's going to make your food supply unlimited, and that's having this 2 year supply of heirloom seeds, which is something I want to dig into right now. And one of the reasons why I mentioned that you need at least a 6 month supply of freeze-dried food or something that you can actually have as storable food that you can eat right away. And by the way, I didn't mention this. No MREs. If you've got MREs, use MREs only if you're in like a dire bug out situation. If you've got like cases of MREs right now, try to take them to the gun show and sell them. Try to trade them off. Do not try to live on MREs for more than like a week, really. That's just bad news in general. I wouldn't even do it for more than a couple days. But this 2 year supply of heirloom seeds is what's going to make this whole thing matter because it's going to take you about 6 months to start growing food reliably. And that's the other reason why you want sprouts, because you can use not just the freeze-dried food, but you can also mix that with sprouts, and you can have food literally that you can grow daily and supplement your nutritional plan while you're waiting for your garden to grow. Now, I know what you might be thinking at this point in time, and that is that even if you live in an apartment or maybe you have no land, you're not going to be able to use these heirloom seeds. The truth is that you can. It's not that difficult. As you can see in this picture here, you can actually just take 5-gallon buckets or even 2-gallon buckets, and you can grow inside of buckets. You can grow inside of pots if you have the pots. It's not difficult to do that. If you have aquaponics or hydroponic system, you can grow inside of that too. It's very easy to grow plants in general. And there's no difference if you don't have a lot of land and you can't put them directly into the ground or not. Okay, whether you live in a high rise or you live in a suburban area, what you're going to need is a little bit of potting soil. And here's the potting soil recipe that you're going to want to use. It's going to be 1/3 compost, 1/3 vermiculite, which is a soil softener, and also 1/3 peat moss. You can also create your own compost over time with some of the rinds and some of the other things that you maybe don't finish. Just keep in mind that those things do go bad and they start to disintegrate, and you got to make sure that you don't keep them as they're decomposing next to your good food storage. So you want to have a little area away from your location that you can actually have the composting. At least I'd say a good 20 or 30 feet away from anything that's really, really important like food. Okay, so you can get these supplies very easily at any hardware store. You just need simply, a garden fork, maybe a hose if you want to be able to water the plants, a few buckets or starting pots. That's really all you need. And I would definitely recommend get a couple sticks or just the little things that you're going to need to keep that garden going. Now, as we talked about before, you can do container and also vertical gardening. There's a lot of people that are actually doing what's called vertical gardening now. And some folks are even growing vegetables and produce up the sides of buildings, which is pretty wild. But there's a lot of community gardens out there too in different urban areas and suburban areas as well. Now, you might think also, well, you don't know anything about gardening. You may or may not have ever had a garden or had any plants where you've tried to grow something that you can eat. Whether you've done it or not, there's a lot of information out there right now on how to do this. Basically, there's books, there's DVDs, there's the internet. You can even take a course sometimes at your local Home Depot type of hardware store. They'll sometimes give courses, especially during the spring. But again, remember, this is happening only during the spring typically when they give these courses, and you really need to learn this stuff right now. So there's plenty of information out there that you can dig into. It's not difficult to find. And the last thing I want to really mention, drive home, is you don't have to take a lot of space for gardening. And the reason why is because if you know how to rotate your plants, which we'll talk about where you can get this information, some resources here in just a little bit, but if you know how to rotate these plants, literally a 4-foot garden space or just even a small space can give you enough food to last you your entire life. It doesn't take much because with composting, like we just talked about that recipe and everything else, you can keep the soil nutritious, you can keep the nutrients, and if you use heirloom seeds, which I'm going to dig into in just a moment of why you want heirloom seeds specifically, and you can't go down to pick up these heirloom seeds at your local hardware store because they don't sell them. They sell these other hybrid and GMO seeds. You have to have something that's going to reproduce that you can save the seeds from, and nothing else you can do will allow you to save the seeds. So, and this brings us to the seed saving, obviously. So the great thing about using heirloom seeds in this way to create this unlimited or renewable food resource is because the heirloom seeds, not only can you save the seeds, but you can store them. Okay, so you can actually dry them out very well, and you can store them for long periods of time. And again, you want to make sure that you store them and you dry them out properly, which we're going to talk about too in just a moment. You might have thought, well, I live in different areas, or I've been in different areas in the country. Will everything grow in the same place? Does it grow the same in Maine as it grows in Florida, as it grows in Colorado, or the Northwest Pacific region? Yes and no. There are some things that grow better, of course, but there are certain varieties of heirloom seeds that actually grow everywhere. It doesn't really matter where you're at. Certain vegetables you can grow pretty much anywhere, especially if you're growing indoors. There's a lot of things that you can actually grow indoors and not really have a problem with it if you're doing container gardening. So you might say, well, what is an heirloom seed? What makes that different than the stuff that you're picking up down at the local hardware store? Well, heirloom seeds are seeds that can be kept genetically clean. They have been kept, I should say, that they reproduce true to type. That means if you get a beefsteak tomato, or I should say not beefsteak tomato, but say one of those big heirloom tomatoes that's like the size of you can't even wrap your hand around it. All right. If you take the seeds from that and you dry them out properly and you store them and you maybe grow it the next year, you save them for a couple years, you grow it again, you're going to get that same exact beefsteak tomato. With the other seeds that are hybrids or GMOs, a lot of times they won't even grow. The seeds won't actually reproduce, or if they reproduce, they start to have a like biological disintegration, like they'll slowly start to not be as resistant because they're a lot of times they say they're guaranteed to grow. Well, they're guaranteed to grow because they're ready. They've been kind of primed, so to speak, and you got to realize that priming also limits the amount of time that you can save those seeds. So if you run down to the store and you say, well, I'm going to buy a bunch of seeds and just put these in my shelf, if you let those seeds sit for even a year or 2 years, you'll find that the majority of those seeds probably will not grow. There's a very good chance that they won't. Because again, they've been primed to grow that season. That's why they say they're guaranteed to grow. And they don't plan on them hanging out in their store for shelves for a long time as well. So you got to be careful because they don't even sell the heirloom seeds. The heirloom seeds are actually disappearing off the market. I'm going to tell you exactly why and who's sucking them off the market too, just so that you don't get a hold of them. So think about heirloom seeds as harvest, grow, and save. All right, it's a three-step process. You harvest them, you save the seeds, and you can turn around and grow them again next year. And as you can see here with this tomato, you just cut them open. There's a lot of seeds. And I'm going to give you some resources on how you can actually go about saving seeds because there's different ways you're going to want to do that to make sure that they're going to stay for the following year. All right, so why do you want heirloom seeds? Now, this is a little bit about what we talked about. They're the only seeds that are going to reproduce true to type. So they're going to get the exact same tomato or the exact same asparagus that you got the previous year when you use an heirloom seed because it's exactly the same. Okay, the seeds from hybrids can be sterile, which means they don't actually reproduce. And if they do, they're not going to necessarily reproduce parents or plants just like the parent. So again, you're going to have that disintegration over time with their offspring. Okay, the genetic disintegration of that. Heirlooms have been around for years and years and years, and they've proven their dependability across the entire country. So if you use an heirloom seed, it's going to grow pretty much in any region, provided that you don't have a drought, obviously, and you just put it in the right environment. Okay, so just make sure that again, those are the things that are kind of common sense. You got to water them, type of thing. I think most people end up when they get seeds or they try to grow something, it's mainly human error. It's not the seeds that have a big problem. It's the human that's trying to grow it that has the problem or doesn't have the green thumb, which again, if you do some research and you do some practice right now, you can fix these problems, okay? Heirlooms that we've chosen basically have stood the test of time, and you want to make sure that you choose the right ones. Again, I'm going to tell you about where you want to go get your heirloom seeds and resources for that here in just a moment when you're going to add that to your plan. Hybrids and GMOs, you may or may not know this, but 80% of all processed foods in the United States contain GMOs. Very, very, very few do not have a genetically modified organism. That's what GMO stands for. And we really don't even know. When they start messing with the genetics of your food, they say you are what you eat. All right, if you keep eating hybrid and GMO foods that you just don't know. It's going to change things in your body. And even though the quote unquote FDA has said oh, this is all safe and everything else, they've not done a 50-year test because these things have not been around for all that long. They've been around for a while, but they don't know the effects of these. And I just personally don't believe that you don't mess with that. That's the area you leave to God. You don't mess with genetics, okay? That's really, really bad. But no, normally, pretty much anything that you eat nowadays that's processed has more than 80% of it is actually GMOs. And this is a funny little picture we grabbed off the internet. It's a Frankenfood, just to give you an idea of how weird and how nasty the food that we get can actually be. So why do you need lots of seeds? Why did I recommend 2 years supply? Because growing conditions may be less than perfect. Sometimes, like we talked about with droughts or floods or any kind of a situation like that where you need to create a sustainable food supply, that again, your sprouts and your freeze-dried food gets you through the growing season, there's a chance that some things might not come up. Or I should say they don't necessarily produce the food that you want them to produce. So that's why you have to have extra. Number two, you have a second and a third chance for success. Okay, we deal with survival and we're dealing with backup plans and everything else. You need to keep in mind that you have to have a backup plan for your backup plan, always. And people make mistakes. If you're learning or trying to cut your teeth on how to grow a garden or how to grow food, you're going to make some mistakes, and you need to have plenty so that you can basically burn through some while you're learning this process. Some crops are also biennial, which means they take 2 years to reproduce seeds. So even though, like, say, for example, carrots, if you're going to be growing carrots, they don't reproduce seeds every single year. It's every other year that they reproduce the seeds. So even though you might plant a bunch of carrots right now, you need to have enough so that you save that for next year in case your carrots that you have right now don't actually produce seed that year. There's a lot of different crops that are like that. Okay, and you need to have extra seed for bartering. Keep in mind that outside of thinking that you have all your preps, you're going to find that there are things that you don't have. And food and water are going to be the two things that everyone's going to want. All right, shelter, that's pretty easy to find, make, or borrow. But food and water is something that has to be created or synthesized. Water just doesn't magically appear unless you're in the middle of a rainstorm, and you're probably not going to catch enough to keep you hydrated. Okay, food is another one. You need to find something that you can eat, and once you've eaten it, guess what? You need to find more food. So this is something that, again, it's a commodity that people consume. So using or having extra seed is an excellent barter tool, and it's something that's going to be worth well over its weight in gold. It's going to be almost, it'll be priceless in a disaster situation, a long-term disaster. Now, and we talked before, these are some seeds. This is another slide here. Overwintering your crop for the second year. These are some things that you're going to learn about in some of the resources I'm going to show you in just a moment. But for the time being, I just want you to make sure that you understand that the 2-year supply is so that you have seeds for bartering, for messing things up, kind of cutting your teeth on it, and also because some of the plants that you have don't reproduce seed every year, so they do it every other year. So who can you barter with? This is another thing you want to take into consideration right now. So if you haven't done this, I would definitely recommend that you, on a sheet of paper, when you have maybe this weekend even, just sit down and actually write the people that you know that's within, say, a 10-mile radius that you might be able to barter with. They may or may not be around when a collapse happens. Who knows what's going to happen and who's going to be where. But you want to make that list of people so that when the time comes, this is on the top of your mind because you're going to want to barter because more than likely you're going to be missing some supplies. You might think that you have everything that you need, but you'll find out real quick, or when you start running out of stuff, that there's stuff that you're going to need to pick up from other people. And if you trust these folks, maybe you can do a little bit of an exchange. So maybe they stock up on some things that you don't stock up on, and then you stock up on things that they don't have. So you're kind of building that whole bartering community and that bartering economy in advance of any kind of a disaster. Okay, here's where you are. This is the USDA plant hardiness zone, and as you can see, well, it's kind of hard to read the notes here, but there's different zones for different weather patterns and things. Again, some things grow better in certain areas than others, but with heirloom seeds, they grow everywhere. Okay, it just matters as far as when the growing season starts and when it doesn't. So you might have started out in North Carolina, but say something was to happen and you might end up in Texas. The same seeds are going to grow in Texas as long as it's an heirloom seed, but your growing season is going to change a little bit. So just knowing when that growing season happens is really, really important. Or you might be in, say, Washington State in the Pacific Northwest, and you might end up in Florida. Completely different zone. You might be on vacation when things fall apart and you just realize you're never going to get back to your house. It's going to take you months on foot to get back to your home in Washington. So you might decide just to stay put. So again, that's another reason why you want to make sure that you know about a little bit about growing seasons and that you have what you need, which are heirloom seeds, to take with you if you're going to be taking a bug out bag or anything like that. You need to have a wide variety because different climates grow different crops and different varieties, like we just talked about. One variety prospers one year and another might prosper the next year. That's a way that you can kind of mix crops. And you need, again, this is things that you learn. They're processes that you learn. And in survival situations, you want to have a lot of options. Bottom line, you don't want to be stuck with as the guy that has no options, or the girl that has no options, or the family that has no options, because you're going to end up doing things that you normally wouldn't do out of good conscience. Okay. You want to have well-proven varieties. That means things, again, that you can grow all across the country, which we're going to talk about again in a moment. And in a survival situation, you might be gardening in different locations, like we talked about. You might start out in Washington State, but you might end up in Florida. So you need to know this stuff in advance. You might wonder also about bugging out or relocating. And this is kind of another funny picture, but this actually might be a reality. I mean, this is a reality because this picture was taken somewhere, but this might be another reality that we're going to be facing here in the near future. So you need to be able to take some of these supplies with you. And if you can't take all your freeze-dried food, and say you've got a year's worth of food or canned food or whatever, and you just can't transport it. What you can take though is you can take your heirloom seeds. So what you can take is if you have enough of them, my recommendation is this is something that's easy to store, and you can store thousands and thousands and thousands of heirloom seeds very easily. That you have enough not only to grow yourself, but if you need to bug out and you need to take them with you, you can take a village worth of seeds with you, and a little small tote, even just in your arms. You can just carry it with you in your arms, literally, and it's not going to be overwhelming because they're not all that heavy. So when thinking about this, you can use some of those seeds for bartering for the products that you don't have. So say you need to have some food now while you're trying to weather the growing season. If you have enough of the heirloom seeds, you can use a portion of those to barter to get the food right now and use the other portion to actually grow. Or you just start growing, okay, if you've got a good solid situation you're in, and you can start selling or bartering with the actual food that's growing out of your garden. So keep that in mind too. And here's a picture of some community gardens. Again, this is something that people do gardening. It's a very community activity. It's not something where you always hide your garden, but in a survival situation, you might want to consider that. But I think you're going to see a lot more community gardens. People that have the green thumb or have the resources, but you have the starters, you have the heirloom seeds again. And the reason why I'm saying so much about heirloom seeds is because I do believe that this is something that is lacking in most everyone's plan. I didn't have this in my plan for a long, long time until I met some people that I'm going to introduce you to in a moment that pretty much educated me. They stood me up and they educated me on what I really needed to have and why this is the solution that if you don't have this right now, you're playing Russian roulette, because when the bullets run out and your food runs out, you're going to have to do something. Okay. So again, this is another picture of some different seed banks and some communities that have gotten together. And you won't see many of these signs, heirloom seeds for sale, anymore, because I'll show you exactly why in a moment. This is Fort Collins National Seed Lab, and they've been testing and basically storing seeds from all over the world. And there's some very important information that's been learned about seeds and seed saving from them, and that is that this is what they taught us, is that getting seeds, you have to get them to the right condition. That's the most important part about seed saving and seed storage. And you have to get them in the proper container. All right. And they also teach people about storing them at the right temperature. Now, this is the most important part. Well, I should say it's the most important, but it's very, very important because this will make the difference between your seeds lasting a few years or lasting a few decades. Okay. You have to get them at the right temperature. So a big thing that they learned was that seeds, in many cases, are way too wet to freeze. So you have to dry them out, and you have to know exactly how to do that properly. Otherwise, you'll ruin the seed itself. And if you ever put a pop can into a freezer by accident, you'll notice that it'll blow up because that water expands. And the water inside of a seed does the same thing. If it's not dried properly, it'll expand. If it's frozen, and basically it'll explode. It'll just destroy the entire seed and won't grow. So these are why heirloom seeds, in my opinion, are a must. They're less expensive than GMO or hybrid seeds in most of the cases. Their storability, less than 1 cubic foot of storage space to store a 50 plus year supply if you store it right. They're great for barter. They're easily transported. They can reproduce seeds that create a renewable food supply, that's the reason why we're talking about this. And a small quantity of seeds can easily produce large amounts of fresh, nutritious food. And like we talked about before, the most nutritious food is going to be the stuff that grows fresh, whether it's sprouts or it's seeds, but it has to be food that you actually grow. If you're just relying to get all of your nutrition from your freeze-dried or dehydrated food, not only will that run out at some point, but it also does not contain the same amount of nutrition and enzymes, the things that your body needs to keep going. And if you deprive your body of that for a long time, you're going to start to see the effects of malnutrition, even though you might feel like you're being nourished. Your stomach might be full, but you might not be getting the nutrition that you need. Okay? So if you're ready to transform your survival food plan now into an unlimited food producing system, and if you want to save a bundle of time and money, I've gone and done a lot of the work for you, and I want to introduce you to this. This is the Golden Seed Kit. Now, this is by far, this is the linchpin in most people's survival food plans. The thing that they're missing, or if you think that you have the seeds, you need to make sure, again, that your seeds were stored properly, they were dried properly, and if you just put your seeds out, just in general, just put them in the garage, the more heat that you have your seeds in contact with, the less likelihood they're going to grow. So if you have seeds that maybe you bought for Y2K, and you're thinking to yourself, those are great seeds, I'm just going to hang on to them, and you know reality-wise if you've stored them properly or not, you should probably consider opening those cans up and trying to use some to see if they still work, number one. Or number two, just you have to refresh these things. Again, food is not supposed to be stored for 25 to 50 years. If you do, that's why they put a shelf life on it. Okay, you need to basically throw that stuff out and get some new ones because you want to make sure that what you have is going to last you. Whether you try to use it or eat it or sell it or do whatever you want with it, okay, you need to make sure that you've got something that's going to be, you can count on. That is the most important thing. So here's what's in the Golden Heirloom Seed Kit. They're all heirloom seeds. There are no GMOs, no hybrids. There's a super huge, large quantity, which we're going to talk about in a second. It's going to blow your mind. There's 68 varieties of 36 different vegetables. So you have everything that you're going to need to start over. They're dried and tested so they can be frozen. And one of the things that the Seed Lab found is that when you freeze the seeds, and not just keep them at a cool temperature, but actually freeze them, it basically doubles their shelf life. They'll last a lot longer. But again, you can only freeze them if you know how to package them and they've been dried properly. And these seeds have actually been dried by an expert who I'm going to introduce you to in a minute. And they're packaged so that you can last more than 50 years with these in the freezer because they're in number 10 cans and they're hermetically sealed. So you don't have to worry about that once you freeze them. Okay, and this company that I'm going to be showing you right now, they've been around for, well, since 1997, way before Y2K, helping people with their seed plan. Now, this is Scott and Char Peterson and their family. Really nice folks. I met them, a couple years back at one of the Self-Reliance Expos, and they really schooled me, like I said, on understanding how to build basically a renewable food system. Because I thought I had it all together with the freeze-dried food, and there was probably like 10 freeze-dried food companies there selling things, which was really great. But this is something that most people forget. Now, they've been living self-sufficiently for most of their life on farms, so they understand. They've had livestock, they've got freeze-dried food, they've been around for a while when it comes to this, to the survival thing. So they really had the opportunity to learn this stuff firsthand. And the reason why they got into the seed business is because people started asking them about seeds and about growing and about what's going to happen when the food supply chains fall apart. And they said, well, this is what we're doing. And people started just asking them, well, can you do the same thing for me? So when I met these folks, when I met Scott and Char, we talked a lot about, well, what is it that people can do right now to start this? So we've been putting this package together for a long time, and this is something that you definitely need to act upon right now. And it's coming again from people that know what they're doing. They've been in this for a long period of time. And well, let me just show you what's in the kit, actually. 68 varieties. This is the 36 different vegetables. There's over 63,000 seeds, okay? Each seed that you plant could potentially produce, I don't know, 8 pounds, depending on what the food is, 8 pounds of food or more, 10 pounds of food even. So these seeds they can last for a long, long time. They can feed a whole community. I mean, 63,000 seeds, that is a ton of food, literally a ton. All right. So if you take action in the next 48 hours, basically we're going to run a promotion right now until Saturday at midnight because I want you to take action on this. If you've been procrastinating or if there's been anything that's been holding you back where you've not been able to include or you've just not taken action on including heirloom seeds into your survival food plan, this is going to blow your mind what I'm going to put together for you here. And I worked with Scott and Shar for this on this package for some time, just trying to get this to the right price, to getting things together, to get the actual package that you really need, the thing that's going to be perfect for survivalists and preppers. Okay, we're going to include 5 bonuses if you act right now before Saturday at midnight. So here's your first bonus. You're going to get a Growing Garden Seeds book. Now this is the easiest book on seed saving you're ever going to find. This teaches you exactly what you need to know about seed saving for small gardeners and farmers. This is the easiest thing you're going to be able to read because most people don't know what they're doing when it comes to seed saving. Like I said, they don't know how to prepare and they don't know how to dry them out. This is what you're going to need. This is the information that I'm going to go ahead and give you. So you don't need to try to find it on your own and hope that it's the right information out there. Number 2, I'm going to give you a sprouting report. This explains exactly where to get the seeds for sprouting and how easy it is to grow sprouts, like highly nutritional food. Now, this is something that will grow again in 2 to 5 days. This is a must-have resource. Okay, it doesn't matter to me if you decide for whatever reason that you just can't, get the heirloom seeds right now. You have to get sprouts. You have to get sprouts. Okay. Now realize this: a 6-gallon bucket of sprouts is very heavy. Okay, it's like heavy, like 20 or 30 pounds. And it's not going to be easy to transport. That's why I recommend getting the seeds. But you should get sprouts anyway because you need to have them as part of your on-the-ground food storage system because you need to have that live nutrition. This book, the special report, is going to teach you exactly where to get your sprouts, to get them super cheap, and exactly how to use them to get high nutritional food in 2 to 5 days. Third bonus. You're going to get garden seed that you can start planting now. Remember we talked before about cutting your teeth on gardening, learning how to do this stuff? We're going to give you 1/4 ounce mixed lettuce seed of 8 different varieties. That's 7,000 seeds that you can plant right now. And if you plant them every 2 weeks, you're going to have a continuous supply. And it's also going to include radish seed and also a package of spinach. So you can vary them up. Basically, you can make salads, okay? You can start adding this nutritional supplement to your diet right now, and you can learn at the same time how to actually start growing these seeds. This is uber important. So even if you had seeds in the past, or maybe you even have some still that you're kind of holding on to, having the seeds right now, the heirloom seeds, that if you don't want to break open your package, you have to have some that you can start planting now and start working with. That's the most important thing. Bonus number 4. This is a mega bonus also. This is the Vegetable Grower's Handbook. It's over 300 pages, detailed instructions on every vegetable. This will teach you everything you need to know. And this is hardcover book. So no matter if things fall apart, this is not a digital book that you're buying online. This is a hardcover book. It's got a $27.95 value. You're going to get this free as a 4th bonus. So again, you don't have to be the expert, but you can actually use this as a reference tool so that when you need to start using them, whether you're using them now and you're starting to grow your garden and getting your feet wet, and cutting your teeth now before a collapse, or you need to pull that out during a collapse and refresh your memory, you're going to have what you need when you need it, which is the Garden Grower's Handbook. This is extremely important. I'm going to give you a super bonus. Now, this is for the folks that want that high touch. They want to be coached. They want to be walked through this. We're going to give you a 4-week survival gardening training course. This is going to begin in about 3 weeks from now, once everyone has had a chance to get their seeds, once you've had a chance to open those packages and be ready to use these. This is a $385 value. This is your opportunity. So you can ask questions. You can take those lettuce seeds and those radish seeds and spinach seeds. You can start growing right now. And you can actually ask Scott and Shar directly. They're going to actually work with you one-on-one in a small group class for 4 weeks to help you get your survival gardening training together. This is really important. You might be in a situation where you don't live in a rural community. Maybe you don't have a green thumb. They're going to teach you everything you need to know. They are absolutely, in my opinion, probably the most seasoned gardeners, the people that I've met. They've been doing this all their life, okay? And this is some people that you really need to meet, and I would like to introduce you to them on this 4-week survival gardening course. This is live, okay? You're going to be able to talk to them and ask all your questions right there. So here's what you're going to get. You're going to get 9 pounds of heirloom seeds. That's 68 varieties of 36 different vegetables. That's valued at $867 if you had to go down to the local hardware store and buy them package by package. And again, these are heirloom seeds, which you can't even get there. You're going to get the seed saving book. You're going to get the sprouting report. You're going to get the seeds for planting right now. You're going to get the vegetable grower's handbook, that 300-page reference guide, and you're also going to get 4 weeks of special training. When you add all this up, this comes up to $1,309.28 worth of value, but you're not going to pay anywhere near that. If you know me, you'll know that I always work to get you the best possible price, even though it only lasts for a couple days. I do everything I can to help you get prepared. All right. So why should you act now? Now this is really, really important. And I've been talking about this a little bit and alluding to it. Heirloom seeds are fewer and fewer in variety. The economy is not getting better, and heirloom seeds are in high demand. These seed companies out there right now are consolidating. I'm going to show you a graphic right now that's going, well, you probably know this, maybe. Okay, if you've been following any of the stuff that's been going on out there in the health world, you'll know this. And you'll see there's a big company here, Monsanto, Syngenta, DuPont. There are really 3 companies right now that control the entire seed world, okay, no matter where you go. And Monsanto is one of the generators of GMOs, okay, genetically modified organisms. They created the Roundup and all kinds of other stuff that's out there. So keep in mind that with all the seed companies consolidating, and they're pulling these heirloom seeds off the market for a reason, because they want you to buy their genetically modified food. If you don't, put it this way, if there are no one that can grow any of their own seeds anymore or grow any of their own food, what are they forced to do? They're forced to buy it from these people. And they get a royalty. They make money every time that you buy a vegetable, whether you buy it from the grocery store or you buy the seed from the hardware store, they're making money. And these businesses are multinational conglomerates, and that's all they care about is making money. Okay, keep that in mind when you go to make your decisions on where you're going to get your seeds. You're not going to have time to do this. If you don't act now, this is a big, big problem. You might also wonder or ask yourself, when did you buy into the gold price? There's a lot of people that they waited till gold hit like $1,800 an ounce or $1,500 an ounce or over $1,000 an ounce to buy. What happens if you would have been able to buy gold at $500? Okay, if you would have known what was coming in, I bet you even at $500 or $600, if you can remember back, and you may or may not even have known this at that time, people were probably saying, oh, it's not going to go any higher than this. Well, look where it went. September 2011, gold hit $1,861. It actually went higher than that afterwards. But it's amazing. If you could have got in early, imagine where you would be at now with gold. It's the same thing is going to happen for heirloom seeds because they are disappearing. People are not selling them anymore, and these multinational corporations are buying them up so that you can't get access to them. So here again, we're going to go through this real quick. This is what you get: 9 pounds of seeds. You're going to get the seed saving book, the special sprouting report, the seeds for planting now to use right now and start learning how to grow, the vegetable growers reference guide, that 300-page book. You're going to get a 4-week survival garden course valued completely. This entire package is $1,309.28. You're going to get it right now, the entire package. If you order before Saturday at midnight, before we close this offer up, you're going to get the whole thing for $197 plus shipping, okay? Again, the benefits of acting now: you're going to get the highest quality seeds in the industry before they're sucked up. Okay, you're going to get, there's a controlled limited supply of these right now. So we've been able to put together enough seed kits to pretty much fulfill this particular promotion we're running. We might actually run out. There's actually a very good chance we will run out. So keep that in mind too, that for us to go back and try to find these seeds again, there's a chance that we might be missing some of the seeds, or this might not happen again. And of course, we're going to try to do our best. I've been working with Shar and Scott to help them get this information and get the seeds out, the proper seeds out to survivalists, because I know that there's been a couple companies out in the past that have tried to sell seeds, and they're not the ones you want. I've personally opened up another seed kit from another company and gave one to my family, spent hundreds of dollars on these things, and they tried to plant them and nothing came up. Like literally nothing came up. So the seeds were completely bunk. Okay, so keep that in mind. These are 100% guaranteed. Scott stands behind them 100%. If you ever have a single problem, he'll just replace everything that you have. Okay, and that's what I talked to him about. We're going to talk about that in a moment. This is a great investment opportunity, so you have what you need now. And you can also start saving money by starting to grow your own food before they outlaw that too. Okay, you get gardening experience, you're going to gain that. Then you have long-term storability. You get a huge discount. This is up to 85% off what you'd have to pay if you had to go out and buy individual packets, or if you went out and bought the food at the store. Okay, and you're going to gain that peace of mind. You're going to also get my personal guarantee, which I stand behind everything that I offer to you because I've done the research, I know the people, and I know the product. These are the seeds that I use myself. If I didn't personally use these seeds, I wouldn't be talking to you about this. Okay? And I only work with people that I work with like for my own plan. I won't sell someone's stuff or promote someone's stuff that I don't personally believe in or I don't personally use. Okay, so you're going to get my 100% no questions asked guarantee. If you're not totally blown away with your seed kit, I'm going to personally come out of pocket and I'll buy it back from you. Okay, Scott guarantees it 100%, but if something goes wrong, I'm going to do it myself. Okay, you see it's right here in writing, no questions asked. You have absolutely nothing to lose, and this is something you absolutely have to have in your survival preparedness plan. So you need to start thinking about the future. Okay, you need to start thinking about living healthy, living life, having a nutritious, bountiful life, and you need to have that peace of mind. The mental stability and the time when you're going to be in personal upheavals, that's something that is going to be worth its weight in gold. Okay, worth more than food, worth more than water, worth more than gold. You're just going to want to be able to be relaxed knowing that you have what you need, and this is what's going to help you do that. So again, you get this entire package right now, $1,300.28 worth of seeds, worth of training, worth of books, everything you're going to need to get you through a disaster situation. You're going to get it for $197 plus shipping, and you have to act now because the bonuses and this promotion, everything ends Saturday at midnight. You've got between now and then. And again, I don't even know if we're going to still have the seeds because I did ask Scott to put together about 100 kits or so, and I have a feeling that they're probably going to sell out really, really fast. So my recommendation is that you go ahead and click the button that's just below this video. Make sure that you get your seed kit right now and that you have enough of it, not just to use today for yourself, but to also use for bartering, because there's going to be a time, like I said before, when you're not going to be able to get these. Okay, so keep in mind that this is not just something that you're going to use in a disaster situation. You're going to probably want to start using this stuff right now. Actually, my recommendation is you start growing your own vegetables now, and that's going to also give you that sense of security if you open up one of these cans, because this comes in a 3-can pack. Okay, if you open up one of these cans and start growing the vegetables, you're going to not only learn how to do it, but you're also going to feel comfortable knowing that these things actually grow. You're not going to be stuck in a situation where you're hoping and wishing that something's going to work for you, and then when you go out to use it, it doesn't work. Okay, so I recommend that you do that right now, and you can even use some of the seeds that we've supplied, the lettuce, the radishes, and the what do you call them, the spinach. You can use that now to start growing. Again, if you don't want to open your cans, we've been able to provide that for you. So I literally have worked night and day on this to put together the best package I can that's going to have you have the most stability, training, and give you everything you're going to need to create that unlimited food supply. And even if you have plenty of freeze-dried food, you've got plenty of MREs and everything else, if you don't have heirloom seeds, you have a gaping hole in your plan, and you need to have these. And that peace of mind for being only $197, retail price is over $1,000. You can't get that anywhere else. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I hope you've taken a lot of really good notes. And I would ask you to do one more thing. After you get your seed kit, pass this information on to others. Realize that there are people out there that are not going to be prepared. They don't know what's going on, and they might even be rolling your eyes right now if you start talking about this type of thing, like, oh, that'll never happen. When stuff goes wrong, when it goes south and things hit the fan, they're going to be the first people that are going to be looking to you for help. So make sure that you've got the information that you can help educate them either pre-collapse or post-collapse, and just make sure you have enough seeds that you can share with the people you really care about who might have been rolling their eyes, but you know how family is. It's one of those things you just don't turn your back on family. Okay, so keep that in mind that you want to have everything that you need now before you're not going to be able to get a hold of these. So click the button below. We'll see you on the 4-week course. Again, don't forget about that special 4-week course. We're going to start that in a few weeks from now after we've shipped out your seed kit to you. And it's going to be awesome. You guys are going to absolutely love this. And anyway, I look forward to helping you complete this part of your preparedness plan and many others. And I hope you've enjoyed our presentation today. And we'll catch you on our next webinar. Take care.